this way.
Few games enjoy an iconic status as much as the original Resident Evil. Whether it be walking through the hallway with skinned dogs jumping in through the windows, or the classic text, "Enter the survival horror," it was universally praised by critics and became loved by fans when it was released in 1996 for the PlayStation 1, and then again in 2002 as a remastered edition for the GameCube. It has spawned a successful franchise of movies, comic books, and games, all bearing the name Resident Evil, and of course, a bunch of remakes. The most recent of these remakes is Resident Evil HD Remastered. Now, Resident Evil HD Remastered is not quite as technologically impressive as the game's original jump from PlayStation 1 to GameCube, but nonetheless manages to add a significant level of technical polish and modernizes the control scheme, making it the definitive version of Resident Evil 1 and a must-buy at $20. The most immediately noticeable upgrade is a significant visual update to the game. Candelabras now glow with dynamic lighting, and lightning flashes through the halls of the Spencer Mansion in a way that could have only been imagined back in 1996, or even in 2002. It should be noted that this is a remake of the 2002 GameCube title, so it draws on those textures and up-reses them to a modern resolution. And for the most part, the game looks fantastic. Character models have a ridiculous amount of detail, resembling something coming from Resident Evil 5 most closely. Well, they don't quite match up to Uncharted or Last of Us levels of realistic character design. They nonetheless look very impressive for a game that's almost 20 years old now. In addition, the static backgrounds have all been up-resed, and for the most part look pretty good. This only makes it stand out more when they're inconsistent. In particular, I found the aqua ring portion of the game to look not so hot in some spots, and it really set apart how good the mansion itself looked. In addition to the character models and the texture upgrades, as well as the dynamic lighting, there's obviously been a sound upgrade for the series. It now supports 5.1 HD surround sound, and it sounds great and atmospheric, and adds a lot to playing through the game. It's really in the little touches that HD Remaster shines. For example, physics has even been added to the alternate costume for Jill, and her ponytail flips around mostly as it would in real life, although it gets a little bit video game hair goofy in some spots. Additionally, all the loading screen doors, which, yes, they have made a return, have received a new fresh coat of paint, which is fortunate as you'll be spending a lot of time looking at them as you travel through the Spencer Mansion trying to unravel the mystery of Umbrella Corp and the T-Virus. All of this, of course, is best experienced at the slick 60 frames per second that the game runs in natively now. Of course, you can cap your frame rate at 30, and this is just indicative of the amount of customization that HD Remaster offers for those who want to have a more nostalgic experience. The game supports 16:9 widescreen as well, although you can change the aspect resolution to 4:3. There is some scrolling as you move through on the 16:9 versions of the game through each static camera angle, but I never found it to be anything that felt less than natural. In addition to the sound and visual updates, a new control scheme has also been offered. Anyone who's played through the original Resident Evil will remember the tank-like controls of the first game and how unintuitive they are. Fortunately, there is a new control scheme which makes a little bit more immediate sense. You push in the direction on the left analog stick that you want to move through each camera angle. It can still get a little bit goofy when you're trying to run through the different camera angles, and sometimes there's like 180-degree flips on which way you need to press to move forward, and you can end up running around in circles and looking like an idiot. But for the most part, I found it a much easier way to play through the game, and when I was reviewing it, I was extremely thankful it was there. If I had to play through with the old controls, it would have been a pain in the ass. The actual content of the game remains very faithful to the 2002 remake on the GameCube, and you'll see all of those pieces returning intact. For example, the Crimson Heads, nasty, harder, faster zombies that'll rise up if you don't burn the bodies, have returned, as well as some of the additional story beats and boss fights that were found in the remake. Unfortunately, outside of that, there's not really any real content additions to this version of the game. I would have liked to have seen some remixing of the puzzles, or maybe a Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence kind of remake of the camera where you're able to control it in third person, as it can get a little bit fiddly at times. But overall, you still can play through the game as both Chris and Jill, and will experience slight variations depending on who you choose to play as. Also, if you choose to play as Chris, you're a crazy person because you have less inventory space. The game has aged fairly well, although some portions stand out as worse than others. The gameplay loop of running around and collecting 4 of each item, keys, crests, masks, doesn't necessarily hold up quite as well as it might have, and feels almost like a throwback to old adventure games. The shooting for the most part feels pretty good, but no matter how much technical polish has been added to the game, it's important to note that it still very much plays like a 20-year-old game plays. If you're a series veteran, you know what you're in for, and if you're someone who's hoping to jump into it for the first time to fill a gap in your gaming knowledge, just know it is pretty intuitive to play now, but at the same time you might run into some old issues and might have to check a FAQ a couple of times. Old video game logic can get weird. With that caveat in mind, it still plays better than the majority of its contemporaries and can easily be recommended to both newcomers and series veterans alike. If you're someone who's played the game before and is hoping to enter the survival horror again and experience the schlocky B-movie thrills, the $20 price point at release and the amount of technical polish given to the game makes the purchase a no-brainer. And if you're a first-timer, there's not a better time to jump into the series than now. A successful revitalization of an all-time classic, Resident Evil HD Remaster is easily one of the best HD remasters in recent memory and stands out as, perhaps disappointingly, the best Resident Evil game to be released in a long time.